Welcome to the most personally challenging video I've ever made as a Christian making a video for an atheist audience. I've said so many times that part of the reason why so many atheists fail to connect with me, fail to engage me in a conversation that goes anywhere, is because they want to debate. They have that high conflict personality. They're ultimately engaging in these videos because they're looking for confirmation of what they actually believe. Whereas I already know what I believe, so I'm not here to argue or debate. I think when people argue and debate, they're wanting to get reinforcement of what they believe, and they get that by talking to the person who says the opposite of them because they have identity protective cognition, which only means they get reinforcement of what they already believe by hearing the opposite. So that's not at all what my channel is about debating and arguing. It's so pointless, such a waste of time. But I keep telling atheists that part of why you're unsuccessful in convincing people to become atheists is because, unlike me, I'm actually a salesman in real life. And I'm really good at it. I'm continually at the top of my team. I've been doing this for over a dozen years. And I know that to successfully sell anything, or a service or product, you have to know what they're motivated by. And atheists tend to use this one size fits all approach, and that is, don't you want to know the truth? The truth is God doesn't exist. This is truth. This is what you need. The average person's not, okay, see ya, I'm out of here, because that doesn't engage where they're tuned into. You got to be able to figure people out and understand what motivates them. This is not the first time I've said this in a video. This is at least, I don't know, the fourth, fifth time. Here's what this video is really about. This is me saying, hey, atheists, if you actually wanted to understand how to relate to someone, if you were even trying to convert a Christian into atheism, or deconvert, then it's a matter of knowing really what their struggle is. And it's funny because I have been very open about this, but atheists do not jump on this. They're not like, oh, well, come with me, I'll tell you more about. No, they're ignoring it. And I think that's really strange. If your goal is to deconvert a Christian and they're telling you what their struggle in their faith is, wouldn't you immediately focus all your attention on that? But no one is. No one is taking this and running with it and leaving comments about it. And I think that's more telling about atheists than anything. I think that atheists believe that they are showing people the truth, and that's their one selling point. But here again, if I have, every Christian has some kind of struggle or some kind of thing they're sorting out. Something that at the end of it, ultimately, and this is how I am, I say, you know what, God, I don't understand that. I'm confused by that. I believe you have more wisdom than me. I choose to believe despite me not being able to understand this. Okay? If any Christian's being honest with you, they've got a couple of things like that. For me, and here it is not the first time I've said it in a video, I think for me it would be the concept of, I didn't ask to be born, right? The concept that none of us asked to be born. I'm happy I'm alive, but ultimately none of us asked to be born, yet we're born into a fallen world where we're already, and then of course I'm speaking what a lot of atheists are going to say is dogma. I accept that, but this is what I believe. Born into a fallen world. We're all born with a sinful nature. We need to be saved. But ultimately, I didn't ask to be born. So it's a struggle for me to think, you're born into having to have this responsibility to do something about this. You have to even at least be responsible to say, I don't believe that there is a God. I don't believe that we were born in sin. I don't believe we're held accountable in this life for what happens in the next, because I don't believe you have to make that decision. Even if by default you make that decision, you still end up making that decision. Yet we didn't ask to be born. We didn't ask to be a part of that. And that is actually my biggest struggle as a Christian. And I think it's so weird and interesting and telling that atheists aren't willing to have that conversation with me. If atheists want to deconvert Christians, it's a matter of figuring out what their weaknesses are. And that's just sales 101. You figure out what motivates someone, what they're already trying to sort out, what made them show up to your store to begin with, you listen to them and you don't assume that they need to hear what you have to say. But you know enough about the topic or the subject of the service to be able to build on top of that. Atheists are not willing to do that with me. Now granted, with that being said, I want to be very clear. I am not someone who's making these videos because I'm trying to sort out my beliefs. I already said, 2 minutes ago, I choose to believe despite not understanding. There are other things that I will never understand in this life, and I accept that. There are things about my faith I will never understand, and that's why it's faith. If I needed proof, like the rest of the world would need proof, then I wouldn't have this faith. To me, that's a simple definition of faith. Believing even though it cannot be proven in this moment. So I think that's very interesting. Atheists just refuse to pounce on that. Because I'm someone who studies atheist culture. So again, I'm not making these videos because I'm trying to sort this out. I'm okay with not having the answer. I'm okay with not having the answer for a lot of things in the Christian faith. But here's what's interesting. Often atheists want to target certain points. Like specifically, they want to be able to try to prove to atheists want to prove to Christians that God is not real, that God does not exist. And they want to have that whole debate, which is very boring, and I refuse to have that discussion with anybody. But what's interesting is this. I am a person who has no trouble choosing to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. He walked on water. He turned the water into wine. All those miracles. I have no trouble, even with the Old Testament, the Jewish faith, everything that you see. Moses parting the red water, all the plagues of Egypt, Adam and Eve being real people, Jonah being swallowed by, not a fish, but a big creature, or whatever translation you're looking at. All of those things, atheists say, you're believing in fairy tales. What's funny is, that's no trouble for me to believe in any of that. It's not trouble for me to believe that Jesus died for our sins and that he came back to life and he conquered death. None of that has ever been a struggle for me to believe. And it's definitely not a struggle for me to believe that God is real and that God exists. To me, nature itself explains that to me. I think, I've said it before, I'm not ashamed. I don't believe in evolution. I don't believe we evolved from apes or monkeys. None of that is hard for me to grasp. None of that. No part of anything I just said do I ever think, but nope, I just believe it. I choose my faith. I choose to believe it. But fundamentally, the part I struggle with is we didn't ask to be born. And we're forced to make a decision to believe or not. And I've said this in another video. It's like, I guess the best thing I can get to an answer on this is that God wanted to know that we actually loved him and chose him, as compared to being robots who were wired and designed, that it was written in our code to worship God. He wants us to truly love him and believe in him. And part of the way we show that we love God is that we obey his commandments. That's something that you see all throughout the Bible. Not just on the Christian side, but the 2/3 of the Bible that's still also the Jewish Bible as well. So I struggle with that though. It doesn't cause me to believe in God less or Christianity less, but I'm telling you, as far as what's called the Christian walk, and I believe that on our Christian walk, we're going to have things that are difficult for us to process. And what I'm talking about may not affect other Christians. This is just, for me, that's the thing. Again, it doesn't keep me from believing. No atheist is going to be able to respond and then I'm going to agree with the atheist. Okay, you're right, I'm not a Christian anymore because of that. But what I'm saying is fundamentally, that's the thing that is the most challenging for me to accept. Because if I could just not, I would rather be the robot. I would rather be born already not having to choose that God is real. I'd be okay with not having free will or whatever you want to call it. I think the world would be a much better place. It would be a much better place. We wouldn't have this fallen world that we live in now. So that's reality. But yet still, as I make more videos for atheists, this whole video will go ignored. No one's willing to talk about this because ultimately, that to me is the foundation of all of this. The foundation of all of this is the fact that we're given a choice, that when we don't want a choice, we have to make a decision, and if we don't, our decision is made. We choose to believe there is no God. Ultimately, Jesus did not need to come to die for our sins. We did not need to be saved. There is no such thing as sinful nature. To me, it all falls apart based on that, not about the miracles of the Bible or anything like that. So this video is not me like sorting out what I believe. I'm already telling you I'm choosing to believe despite all of this. But what I'm saying is, the takeaway, it's weird that atheists don't care when I'm being real with you and telling you this is actually the thing that I will always try to be sorting out. If it wasn't this thing, it'd be something else. That's how faith is. You don't have all the answers and you choose to believe anyway. For me, I'm always looking at the psychology behind this. It's psychology of atheists. Why do atheists ignore? It's like in Star Wars, and they're like, okay, if you hit this one spot, the whole ship will blow up. And I'm telling you, here it is, and everyone just ignores it. I think it could be an interesting conversation to carry on, but I just don't think, I think atheists are too caught up in trying to prove that Christians are ignorant, wrong, and or immoral, and that all this is fairy tales. I think they're so caught up on that, they can't imagine, they can't think like a salesman like I am and think, but this is the thing that they're talking about, not this conversation I'm starting as the atheist. That's weird to me. But is it that simple? Atheists only want to talk about their version of trying to deconvert someone. I think that's interesting. These videos are about the psychology of atheists. I may never talk about this again because no one will watch or care about this video. I think it's a very likelihood is what's going to happen. Either way, your comments right here.